Did he save her or condemn her? The Apache warrior imprisoned him with her sacred law. The sun was beginning its slow descent over the dry, rugged hills of the southwest. The air was hot and dusty, carrying with it the faint smell of sagebrush and distant smoke. Ethan Harper trudged along a narrow trail, his boots kicking up small clouds of dust with every weary step. His clothes were torn, and blood stained the sleeve of his shirt. Days had passed since he had last eaten properly, and his body screamed for rest. He had been running, not just from the heat, but from men who wanted him captured for reasons he could not ignore. Every sound made him flinch. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Ethan's journey had begun weeks earlier, far from these hills. He had stumbled into a mess of trouble he did not ask for, tangled in secrets that powerful men wanted to keep hidden. He had no family left, no one to turn to. Trust was a luxury he could not afford. Yet, despite the fear gnawing at him, he could not stop moving. Somewhere ahead, he hoped, there might be safety. Somewhere ahead, there might be a chance to survive. As the sun dipped lower, Ethan's steps faltered. He stumbled over a jagged rock and fell hard, his side burning from a new wound. His body begged him to stop, but his mind refused. He knew that if he slowed, even for a moment, he might not get up again. Panting, he struggled to his feet and pressed on, scanning the horizon for any sign of shelter. That's when he saw it, a cluster of simple structures nestled in a valley below, partially hidden by the bend of a rocky ridge. Smoke rose from a small fire, curling gently into the warm evening air. Someone lived there. Someone might help him. As Ethan approached cautiously, he felt a strange mixture of hope and fear. The village was quiet, almost unnaturally so. No children's laughter echoed, no animals stirred. Only the gentle crackle of the fire and the distant calls of birds filled the air. He slowed, instinctively careful not to draw attention. Every step brought him closer to unknown danger, yet he had little choice. He could collapse here in the open, and death might find him before anyone else, or he could take the risk and step into this unknown place. A figure appeared near the fire, moving with grace and awareness that spoke of someone deeply connected to their surroundings. She was young, with long dark hair that caught the last rays of the sun, and her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and calm. This was Aeon. She moved as if she belonged to the land itself, her every gesture blending with the rhythm of the valley. Ethan hesitated, unsure if she would see him as a threat or a trespasser, and wondered if he should turn back. But the pain in his body, the exhaustion in his limbs, urged him forward. Aeon's eyes met his as he drew nearer. There was no fear in her gaze, only careful observation. She did not rush to him, did not call out. Instead, she waited, silent yet commanding. Ethan stopped a few feet from her, raising his hand slightly to show he meant no harm. I need help," he said, his voice rough from thirst and strain. "Please, I mean no trouble." Aeon studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. She could sense the truth in his words, the desperation that clung to him like a shadow. Yet, she also knew the rules that governed her people. Her tribe's sacred laws were clear. Outsiders could not be welcomed without careful consideration, and any breach of the law could bring danger to the entire village. She stepped forward slowly, closing some of the distance between them, and spoke in a calm, steady voice. "You are far from your home," she said softly, her tone carrying both curiosity and warning. "Why have you come here?" Ethan swallowed, his throat dry, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I was running. I don't belong here, I know that, but I have nowhere else to go. I'm hurt, and I need shelter." Aeon's gaze did not waver. She could feel the truth in his words, but she also felt the danger in harboring him. Her people's laws were not meant to punish outsiders without reason, but they were there to protect the tribe. She could not ignore them, even if her heart urged her to help. For a long moment she said nothing, letting the wind carry her thoughts and her silence speak. Ethan watched her, hope and fear battling inside him. He had faced many dangers, but none so quiet and powerful as the woman before him. Finally, Aeon spoke again. "If I help you, it will not be without consequence. My people have rules that are older than any of us. If I break them, others will suffer. Do you understand?" Ethan nodded quickly. "I understand. Whatever it takes, I'll do whatever you ask. Just please help me." Aeon's eyes softened just slightly, though her expression remained firm. She gestured toward the fire. "Come, you may sit, but no further. We will see if you can follow the law while you stay here. Your actions will speak louder than your words." Grateful, Ethan moved closer, careful not to overstep. The fire's warmth touched his chilled skin, and he allowed himself a moment to rest. Every muscle in his body ached, and the pain in his side throbbed with a dull insistence. He watched Aeon prepare a small bowl of water and a few simple roots and herbs. She handed them to him, and he drank and ate slowly, savoring each sip and bite. It was more nourishment than he had had in days, and he felt some strength returning to his limbs. As night fell, the stars emerged, glittering over the quiet valley. The village remained calm, almost serene, but Ethan could sense the watchful eyes of unseen villagers. Aeon had not left him alone. She sat nearby, keeping a careful distance, her posture alert. She was a guardian and a judge at once, her presence a reminder that the law she upheld was unyielding. "I am Aeon," she said after a long pause. "You must remember that your survival here depends on more than your words. Your respect for my people, our land, and our law will determine your fate. Do you understand?" Ethan nodded again, feeling a mixture of awe and fear. "Yes, I understand." The night deepened and the sounds of the desert surrounded them. Crickets chirped, wind whispered through the rocks, and the distant call of an owl echoed. Ethan lay back trying to rest, but his mind was alive with questions. Who were these people? Why were their laws so strict? Could he truly survive under them? And most importantly, could he trust Aeon to protect him, or was he already trapped by the invisible chains of her sacred law? Aeon watched him quietly, the firelight flickering across her face. She was aware of every movement he made, every shallow breath, every twitch of pain in his body. Her decision to help him had not been simple, and she knew the path ahead would not be easy. By giving him shelter, she had set in motion events that could change both their lives forever. Yet she also felt a small, quiet hope. Perhaps he was different. Perhaps he was worthy. Through the night, Ethan drifted between wakefulness and sleep, haunted by his past and uncertain of his future. And through it all, Aeon remained vigilant, a silent guardian and the living embodiment of her people's sacred law. The valley seemed peaceful, but danger was never far away, and the next day would bring challenges that would test courage, trust, and the strength of human will. As the first light of dawn touched the valley, Ethan awoke with a renewed determination. He knew survival would demand not just strength, but humility, respect, and understanding. He looked at Aeon, who stood at the edge of the firelight, her eyes scanning the horizon as if reading secrets only she could see. Somehow, he felt that this meeting was no accident. Somehow, he sensed that their lives were now bound together by forces far greater than either of them could yet comprehend. The story of Ethan and Aeon had begun, one of courage, law, and the fragile hope that even in a harsh world, humanity and compassion could prevail. And though Ethan could not yet see the full path ahead, he understood that every step would test not only his body, but his spirit. The sun rose fully, casting golden light across the valley, and with it came the promise of challenges, choices, and a story that would unfold in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of sage and the earthy aroma of the valley. After the night's chill, Ethan woke slowly, his muscles stiff, and his body still ached from the journey and injuries he had suffered. Yet, for the first time in days, he felt a fragile sense of hope. He looked around the small village nestled between rocky ridges and realized just how isolated this place was. It was a world apart from the dangers he had fled, a place of quiet order, where every movement and sound seemed purposeful. Aeon was already awake. She moved through the village with the calm authority of someone deeply connected to the land and the rules that governed it. Her steps were light, deliberate, and silent, as if the earth itself recognized her presence. She carried a small bundle of herbs and roots, carefully arranging them near a fire to dry in the morning sun. When she noticed Ethan stirring, she walked toward him, her expression composed yet unreadable. "You slept," she said, her voice even but soft. "That is good. Your body will need strength if you are to follow our ways." Ethan struggled to sit up, wincing at the pain along his side. "Thank you, Aeon. I don't know what I would have done without your help." She studied him for a moment, her dark eyes reflecting the sunlight. "Help is not freely given. It carries responsibility. You must understand that if you stay here, you are not free in the way you were before. Our laws are not suggestions. They are the threads that hold this community together." Ethan nodded slowly, sensing the weight behind her words. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to follow your law." Aeon gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, then gestured for him to rise. She led him through the village, showing him the simple homes made of timber and mud, the small gardens where vegetables and herbs grew, and the animals that roamed under careful watch. She spoke of the rules of the village as they walked, the sacred laws that govern behavior, respect for nature, and the responsibilities each person held. "These laws are older than the hills," Aeon explained. "They guide us, they protect us. Breaking them can bring harm not only to you but to everyone here." Ethan listened intently, absorbing every word. He realized that Aeon's people were bound by a discipline, an understanding that he had never known. Out in the wider world, rules were often ignored or broken without thought. Here, every action had a consequence, every word mattered, and respect was not demanded but earned. As they reached a small open space near a stream, Aeon stopped. "Before you can be welcomed fully, you must understand something. You cannot lie, you cannot steal, you cannot harm anyone, and you must respect the land for it is sacred." Ethan swallowed, aware of the gravity of her words. I can do that. I will do that." Aeon studied him carefully. She had seen many outsiders, some desperate, some dangerous. Her instincts told her that Ethan was not like the others, but she knew instinct alone was not enough. The law demanded proof. She would need to see his actions, his respect, and his understanding. "Today you will observe," she said. "You will watch how we live. You will not interfere yet. Tomorrow you will begin your test. If you fail, the consequences will be severe." Ethan nodded, accepting the terms without hesitation. He felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. The promise of safety was there, but it was tethered to strict rules that he could not ignore. He followed Aeon as she moved gracefully through the village, greeting her people with small gestures of respect, checking on the children, and ensuring the animals were cared for. He noticed how everyone moved with purpose, how even the youngest knew the importance of their actions. By mid-morning, Aeon led Ethan to a small stone circle where the elders of the village often met. "They will decide whether you may stay," she said. "You will speak truthfully, answer honestly, and show respect. Nothing else matters." Ethan's heart pounded as he approached the elders. They were seated on low stones, their faces lined with age and experience, eyes sharp and assessing. Each one radiated authority, and Ethan felt the weight of their judgment before he had even spoken. "You have entered our village without invitation," one of the elders said, his voice calm but firm. "Why should we allow you to remain?" Ethan swallowed and met their gaze. "I'm not here to take from you," he said, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I am hurt, I am fleeing danger, and I have nowhere else to go. I ask only for shelter and the chance to prove my respect for your people and your law." The elders exchanged glances, speaking briefly in low tones that Ethan could not understand. Finally, the elder who had first spoken looked back at him. "Our laws are clear, yet we see your honesty. We will allow you to remain for a time under observation. Any violation of our law will bring punishment. Do you understand?" "Yes," Ethan said without hesitation. "I understand completely." Aeon gave a small nod of approval. She knew that the real challenge was just beginning. Shelter alone would not be enough. Ethan needed to prove himself in actions, not just words. The next hours were spent observing life in the village. Ethan saw how every person, regardless of age, contributed. Children helped tend the gardens, carrying small baskets of vegetables. Adults worked on repairs, weaving baskets, or caring for animals. There was no laziness, no carelessness. Each act, however small, was meaningful. Ethan began to understand that survival here depended not only on physical strength, but on understanding, respect, and patience. Aeon watched him quietly, noticing the subtle ways he adapted. He did not make assumptions, he did not speak out of turn, and he moved carefully, aware of the rhythm of the village. She saw promise in him, but she knew the test would be difficult. Respect for the law was not given. It was earned through consistent, careful action. As evening approached, Aeon led Ethan to a quiet spot near the stream. "Tomorrow begins your first trial," she said. "You will gather herbs for the medicine woman, and you must follow her instructions exactly. One mistake could harm someone or anger the spirits." "Do you understand?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, I understand. I will do exactly as I am told." Aeon looked at him for a long moment, her expression softening slightly. "You may be different," she said, "but even the best intentions are not enough. The law is unforgiving. You will need patience, care, and humility." Night fell again, bringing with it the quiet songs of the desert. Ethan lay under the open sky, listening to the wind rustle through the rocks and the distant call of owls. He thought about the day, about Aeon, and about the laws that governed this small, hidden world. He realized that survival would not be easy. It would demand more than strength. It would demand understanding, respect, and courage of a different kind. Aeon, sitting nearby, kept watch over him as she had the night before. She understood the weight of the choice she had made by allowing him to remain. By helping him, she had set a chain of events in motion that could bring great danger or great growth. She knew that the law must be upheld, but she also understood the human heart. And she sensed something in Ethan that few outsiders possessed: honesty, courage, and a willingness to learn. As dawn approached, the first hints of sunlight painting the valley in golden hues, Aeon spoke softly to him. "The law is not just rules," she said. "It is guidance, protection, and balance. You must learn to follow it not because you are afraid, but because it is right. Only then will you find your place here or face the consequences of failure." Ethan nodded, feeling the gravity of her words. He knew the path ahead would be difficult, but he also felt the stirrings of determination deep within him. For the first time in a long while, he believed that survival was possible, not only for his body but for his spirit. And so, the second day in the village began, not with violence or danger, but with a test of patience, respect, and understanding. A test that would challenge Ethan in ways he could not yet imagine, guided by a woman who carried the weight of her people's sacred law, and whose quiet strength would shape his journey in ways he had not foreseen. The story was no longer just about fleeing or hiding. It was about learning, respecting, and earning a place in a world far different from the one Ethan had known. A world where law, tradition, and human heart were inseparable, and where every choice carried consequences that could echo far beyond a single day. The first light of morning stretched across the valley, painting the rocky hills in soft gold and amber. Ethan Harper awoke with a renewed determination. The night had been quiet, but the lessons of the previous day had settled in his mind like seeds. He understood now that survival in this village would not be about brute strength or cunning alone. It would be about patience, respect, and understanding. Every action mattered, every gesture carried weight and every choice had consequences. Aeon was already moving through the village, her steps light but purposeful. She carried a small basket filled with fresh herbs, the scent strong and fragrant in the crisp morning air. When she noticed Ethan stirring, she approached him without a word. Her dark eyes held a mixture of calm authority and curiosity, as if measuring the resolve within him. "Today," she said finally, "your trial begins. You will gather herbs for the medicine woman. Every herb, every leaf, every root has its place and purpose. One mistake could harm someone or bring dishonor to the village. You will follow her instructions exactly. Do you understand?" Ethan nodded quickly, swallowing his fear. "Yes, I understand. I will do everything as she says." Aeon studied him for a long moment. "Good. Remember, this is more than just gathering plants. It is learning respect, patience, and understanding the balance of our world." They walked together to the edge of the village, where the land opened into rolling plains dotted with scrub, wildflowers, and herbs. The medicine woman, a quiet figure with deep, knowing eyes, awaited them. She looked at Ethan briefly, then turned to Aeon. "He will learn," she said simply, her voice calm yet firm. Ethan listened carefully as the medicine woman explained the herbs he must gather. He needed to identify them correctly, pick them without damaging their roots, and carry them carefully back to the village. It sounded simple, but as soon as they set off into the wilds, he realized how easy it would be to make mistakes. The desert was alive with subtle sounds, the rustle of small animals in the brush, the chirping of birds, and the distant howl of a coyote. Ethan moved cautiously, scanning every plant, every leaf. He remembered Aeon's words about respect and care. He bent to pick the first herb, making sure not to crush any nearby plants. Yet, even with careful hands, he struggled to identify the subtle differences between the correct herbs and the similar-looking ones growing nearby. Hours passed, and the sun climbed high into the sky. Sweat soaked Ethan's clothes, and his muscles ached with the repeated bending and careful movements. He felt frustration rising. He had faced dangers before, men with guns, wild animals, and harsh weather, but nothing had tested him like this. One wrong choice could harm someone in the village. One careless step could dishonor Aeon and the people who had taken him in. Aeon followed quietly, watching his movements with keen eyes. She did not intervene, even when she noticed him hesitate or struggle. She knew that for Ethan to truly learn, he had to make his own choices. She could guide him with words, but the law demanded that he prove himself through action, not by relying on others. At midday, Ethan paused to rest under the shade of a small rock outcrop. He drank from a water skin, grateful for even this small comfort. He looked around at the vast expanse of the land and felt both awe and humility. The desert was harsh, unforgiving, yet it was also alive, full of balance and rhythm that he had never understood. He realized that the people of the village lived in harmony with this land, guided by the wisdom of generations. He had entered their world as a stranger, but now he began to see the delicate connections that held it together. When he resumed his task, he moved more carefully, listening to the subtle sounds of the land. He noticed the way certain herbs grew near rocks or in shaded areas, the slight difference in color or shape that distinguished one plant from another. Slowly, he began to gather the herbs correctly, placing them in his basket with care and reverence. Aeon watched him, her expression unreadable. She had seen determination in outsiders before, but rarely had she seen one so willing to learn. Yet she knew that determination alone was not enough. The law demanded patience, humility, and respect. A moment of carelessness could undo all progress. As the sun began to descend, Ethan felt the weight of his task more than ever. His arms ached, his back protested, and his focus wavered. One misstep, a crushed leaf, a misidentified herb, could ruin the entire collection. He paused to take a deep breath, steadying his hands and clearing his mind. He reminded himself of the trust Aeon had placed in him, and the responsibility he carried not just for himself, but for the village. When they returned to the village, the medicine woman inspected the herbs. She examined each one carefully, checking for proper identification, careful handling, and respect shown in the gathering. Ethan held his breath, feeling the tension of the moment. Aeon stood nearby, her eyes calm but attentive, watching the subtle reactions of the medicine woman. Finally, the woman looked up at him. "You have done well," she said. "Not perfect, but your care and respect are clear. This is more important than speed or ease. You have learned the first lesson. Respect is shown in your actions, not your words." Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. He had succeeded, at least in part, yet he also knew that this was only the beginning. The village's laws were complex, and every day would bring new tests, new challenges, and new lessons in humility and responsibility. Aeon approached him, her dark eyes meeting his. "You have done well," she said softly. "But remember, one day of success does not guarantee another. The law is constant, it watches and it demands truth. You must always act with care, with respect, and with understanding." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I will not forget this." The evening fell, bringing a quiet calm over the village. Ethan helped with small tasks, carrying water, tending animals, and assisting wherever he could. Each action was simple, yet each carried weight. He realized that the smallest act, lifting a bucket carefully, speaking politely, handling an animal with care, was a reflection of respect for the law, the people, and the land. Aeon observed him closely. She saw that his understanding was growing, that he was learning not just the rules, but the spirit behind them. Yet she also knew that the next trials would test him in ways far more difficult than gathering herbs. Courage, wisdom, and moral strength would all be needed. The law was not merely a set of instructions, it was a living force, and Ethan would have to navigate it with both heart and mind. As night fell, the village settled into quiet routines. Fires glowed softly in each home, and the sounds of animals and the desert filled the air. Ethan lay beneath the stars once more, reflecting on the day. He realized that survival here was not just about escaping danger. It was about becoming a part of something larger than himself, about understanding the delicate balance between law, duty, and compassion. Aeon, sitting nearby, kept her silent vigil. She thought of the choices she had made in allowing him to remain, the risks she had accepted, and the lessons he had already begun to learn. She knew that the path ahead would be fraught with tests, both physical and moral, and that the future of this stranger now rested in her hands as much as his own. Ethan understood only a fraction of the world he had stepped into, but he felt its power, its rules, and its quiet beauty. He realized that every day, every action, every choice mattered. And as he drifted into a restless sleep, he knew that the trials of tomorrow would demand even more of him, more patience, more courage, and a deeper respect for the law that governed the lives of those who had offered him a chance to survive. In the stillness of the desert night, under the watchful gaze of Aeon and the silent stars, Ethan Harper's journey of respect, trust, and survival truly began. Each step forward would test him, shape him, and challenge the very essence of who he was. And though he could not yet see the full path ahead, he understood one undeniable truth. To live here, under the sacred law of Aeon's people, he must become more than a survivor. He must become someone worthy of their trust, their guidance, and their protection. And in that quiet understanding, a seed of hope took root, a fragile yet persistent hope that courage, humility, and respect could overcome even the harshest trials of life, and that perhaps, through his actions, he could prove himself worthy of the rare and precious gift he had been given, a chance to belong. The morning sun rose over the valley, casting long shadows across the village. Birds chirped in the crisp air, and a faint breeze stirred the leaves of the trees. Ethan Harper awoke with a mixture of anticipation and unease. Today was different. Aeon had told him that the elders would meet, that a council would decide whether he could continue staying in the village. It was a moment he had both feared and awaited. As he rose, stretching his stiff muscles, he noticed Aeon already awake, moving with her usual calm authority. She carried a small bundle of herbs in her hands, her dark eyes scanning the horizon. When she saw Ethan, she approached silently, her steps deliberate and steady. "Today," she said quietly, "you will meet the council. You must speak truthfully and act with respect. Their judgment will weigh heavily on you and on me. The choice you make in your words and actions will determine your future here." Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump of anxiety in his throat. "I understand. I'll do my best." Aeon studied him for a moment, her face calm but serious. "Your best must be guided by honesty, respect, and humility. Nothing else will matter." They walked together to the center of the village, where the elders had already gathered. 7 figures sat in a semicircle, each one exuding the quiet authority of age, experience, and wisdom. Their eyes were sharp, their expressions unreadable. Ethan felt a wave of nervousness wash over him, but he forced himself to stand tall. "You have been observed," one elder said, his voice calm but firm. "Your actions over the past days have shown both care and attention, yet you are still an outsider. Our law is clear. Any who enter without invitation must be judged carefully. You must now speak your truth." Ethan drew a deep breath. "I have done my best," he said, his voice steady despite the tension. "I have tried to respect your people, your land, and your law. I do not wish to harm anyone or bring dishonor. I only ask for a chance to continue learning, to continue proving that I am worthy of your trust." The elders exchanged glances, speaking briefly among themselves in low tones. Ethan could not understand their words, but he could feel the weight of their discussion pressing down on him. The silence stretched, making him acutely aware of every heartbeat, every shallow breath. Finally, one elder spoke. "Your words are honest, but words alone do not suffice. Actions matter. You must demonstrate that you understand the spirit of our law, not merely its rules. You have been tested in patience, in care, and in humility. Yet the greatest test remains, your moral judgment under pressure." Aeon stepped forward, her expression calm but intense. "There are matters coming that will challenge your heart and mind. You must choose wisely, for your choice will affect not only yourself but others in this village. Are you prepared?" Ethan nodded, feeling a knot of fear and determination in his stomach. "I am," the elder continued. "There is an incident. One of the younger villagers broke a rule, accidentally harming another. The law demands correction, but you, as an outsider, have witnessed this. How you respond will reveal your understanding of our ways. Speak truthfully and act with care." Ethan's heart raced. He had observed the incident the day before. A young boy had inadvertently damaged a sacred plant while playing near the garden. The boy had not meant harm, yet the consequences were real. In another world, Ethan might have acted quickly and harshly, but here, he understood that every action had balance, every correction carried weight. "I understand," Ethan said slowly. "The boy did not intend harm. The plant is sacred, yes, but punishment must also consider intent. I believe guidance and education are better than anger or fear. We must help him learn respect without causing pain that outweighs the mistake." The elders listened, their faces unreadable. Silence followed, heavy and deliberate. Aeon watched him, her expression calm, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of approval. She knew that this was the critical moment. Ethan's understanding of law, justice, and mercy would determine whether he could remain in the village. One elder finally spoke. "Your words show wisdom beyond your years, yet understanding is not enough. You must act." He gestured toward the boy, who stood nearby, eyes downcast, trembling. Ethan felt the weight of the moment settle over him. He stepped forward, kneeling to the child's level. "You did not mean harm," he said gently, "but you must learn. We will teach you how to care for the plants, how to respect them, and how to understand the consequences of actions. Do you understand?" The boy nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. Ethan guided him back toward the garden, demonstrating how to handle the plants with care, showing patience and calm in every step. Aeon followed silently, her presence a quiet reminder that law and compassion must coexist. When they returned, the elders observed quietly, weighing every gesture, every word. Ethan could feel the tension, the unspoken scrutiny. Finally, the elder who had first spoken nodded slowly. "You have acted with wisdom and compassion. You have balanced the law with understanding, showing respect for both tradition and the human heart. You may continue to remain under our guidance, but know this: your actions will always be watched. The law is eternal, and it demands truth." Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. He had succeeded in this trial, but he knew the path ahead would be even more difficult. Each day would bring new tests, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove himself worthy of trust. Aeon approached him, her dark eyes softening slightly. "You have shown courage, humility, and respect," she said. "But remember, true understanding is not a single act. It is the sum of every choice you make, every day. You have passed this test, but the greatest challenges are yet to come." Ethan nodded, feeling a mix of pride and apprehension. He realized that his journey was far from over. Survival in this village was not about evading danger, but about understanding a world far different from the one he had known. Every action, every word, every thought mattered. The day continued with tasks that tested both skill and character. Ethan helped gather water, tend to the animals, and repair small structures in the village. Each task was simple, yet carried significance. He understood that even the smallest act, performed with care and respect, was a reflection of his commitment to the law and to the people who had taken him in. As the sun began to descend, casting long shadows across the valley, a messenger arrived with news from the outskirts of the village. A neighboring tribe had experienced trouble, and some of the villagers' assistance might be needed. The elders convened again, discussing how to respond while maintaining the safety and law of their own people. Ethan observed quietly, absorbing the careful deliberation, the balance of caution and compassion that guided every decision. Aeon caught his eye and spoke softly. "This is another lesson. Leadership and law are not only about enforcing rules, they are about judgment, understanding, and responsibility. Watch, learn, and remember. You may be called upon to act in ways you do not yet anticipate." Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. He realized that remaining in this village was not a passive opportunity. It demanded awareness, thought, and care. Every decision he made would ripple outward, affecting not only himself but everyone around him. As evening fell, the village gathered for a quiet ceremony. Fires glowed softly, and the elders spoke of law, tradition, and the balance between justice and mercy. Ethan listened intently, feeling the profound importance of these rituals. He understood that law was not merely punishment or instruction. It was a living framework that guided every aspect of life, ensuring harmony and respect in a world that could easily be harsh and unforgiving. Aeon sat beside him, her eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. "You have learned much," she said quietly. "But remember, understanding the law is only the beginning. Following it when it is difficult, that is the true test. And soon, your trial will demand more than skill or knowledge. It will demand courage, wisdom, and a choice that may weigh on your conscience." Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. He knew that the coming days would be the most challenging yet. The council had given him approval to remain, but this was only temporary. He would need to prove, again and again, that he was worthy of trust, respect, and protection under the sacred law. The night settled over the valley, bringing a quiet calm. Ethan lay beneath the stars, reflecting on the events of the day. He thought of the council, of Aeon, of the young boy he had guided, and of the delicate balance that governed this village. He understood that he had passed an important test, but the journey was far from over. And in that quiet reflection, he realized something essential. Surviving here was not just about avoiding danger. It was about becoming part of a world far greater than himself, about learning the law not only with the mind but with the heart. He knew that his next challenge would require every ounce of courage, patience, and wisdom he possessed, and that the choice he would face might define not only his future but the fate of those around him. The first stars appeared in the darkening sky, their light steady and constant. Ethan Harper understood, for the first time, that life under the sacred law was a test of character as much as of action. Every choice mattered, and the consequences would follow him like shadows. And though he could not yet see the path ahead, he felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders, and the quiet determination to rise to the challenge, whatever it might be. The valley was bathed in the warm glow of the rising sun, and the village stirred with the quiet rhythm of morning. Ethan Harper awoke with a sense of anticipation he had not felt before. Today would decide everything. The days of observation, of trials, of learning the sacred law, they had all led to this moment. The Council of Elders had summoned a special meeting, and Aeon had been silent and serious all morning, preparing both herself and him for the weight of the choice that was to come. Ethan rose carefully, his body still aching from the labor and trials of the past days. He understood that this was no ordinary day. He was no longer merely a visitor. His fate, and the fate of his presence in the village, now rested in the delicate balance between law, mercy, and trust. Every step, every gesture, every word he spoke could tip that balance. Aeon appeared as he emerged from his small shelter, carrying a bundle of herbs and walking with her usual calm authority. Her expression was unreadable, yet there was a quiet gravity in her eyes. She beckoned him to follow her, leading him to the center of the village where the elders awaited. "You have learned much," she said softly, her voice steady. "But now comes the moment of truth. Your actions will not only be judged by the law, but by the spirit behind it." "Are you prepared?" Ethan nodded, swallowing the anxiety that tightened his throat. "I am." The elders were seated in their semicircle, their faces calm but their eyes sharp, assessing, as if weighing the very essence of his character. One elder, older than the rest with deep lines etched into his face, spoke first. "You have observed, learned, and acted under our guidance. You have shown care, respect, and patience. Yet the ultimate test remains, a choice that could either save or condemn." Ethan's heart pounded. He had anticipated trials of skill, knowledge, or patience, but the weight of a moral choice was heavier than any physical test. He realized that his actions would now have real consequences, not just for himself, but for those he had come to respect, and for Aeon, whose honor and duty were intertwined with the law. One of the elders spoke again. "A neighboring tribe has been in distress, and a choice must be made. They seek help, but the law limits outsiders from freely intervening. Aeon has vouched for you, yet your actions here will determine whether intervention is justified. Speak truthfully, act wisely. The consequences are significant." Ethan felt the gravity of the moment sink into him. He looked at Aeon, whose calm eyes held a mixture of hope and concern. She had guided him, taught him, and tested him, but now the responsibility rested on his shoulders. He could see that the decision he made would echo far beyond this valley. He took a deep breath, recalling the lessons he had learned: respect, humility, patience, and understanding the balance between law and compassion. The memory of the young boy, whom he had guided gently and taught the meaning of care, came to mind. He realized that mercy, when combined with respect for law, could create harmony rather than disorder. "I will speak truthfully," Ethan began, his voice steady but firm. "The neighboring tribe is in distress. If we can help without breaking the balance of the law, we must do so. The law is not merely punishment or restriction, It is guidance, and guidance sometimes calls for wisdom and courage to act rightly. I believe we can aid them in a way that honors our law and protects both our people and theirs." The elders listened in silence, their expressions thoughtful. Ethan continued, outlining a careful plan to assist the neighboring tribe while maintaining the sacred principles of the village. He described how they could provide food, water, and guidance, without inviting unnecessary risk or violating the boundaries of the law. Every word, every detail was measured and deliberate. When he finished, the council remained quiet for a long moment. Aeon watched him intently, noting the clarity, compassion, and courage in his voice. Finally, the elder with the deepest lines spoke. "You have spoken with wisdom and foresight," he said. "You have demonstrated understanding not only of the law but of its spirit. You have chosen to act with honor, not out of fear or convenience but out of responsibility. This is rare among outsiders. Your actions show that mercy and law can coexist when guided by knowledge and respect." Ethan felt a wave of relief wash over him, but he did not allow himself to relax. He knew that even now, the outcome could shift. The law was constant, and the elder's judgment could be unforgiving. Yet he also sensed that his understanding, his learning, and his careful action had brought him to the brink of acceptance. Aeon stepped forward, her voice calm but carrying weight. "The decision has been made," she said. "Ethan Harper has shown that he can follow the law, respect its spirit, and act with wisdom. He has earned the chance to remain under the law, to continue learning, and to demonstrate his character through deeds. But know this, freedom here is never without responsibility. The law is always watching." Ethan nodded, understanding fully the balance between relief and responsibility. He was not free in the way he had been before, but he had been given something far more valuable: trust, guidance, and a place where his actions mattered. The village erupted in quiet celebration, not loud or boisterous, but in the subtle gestures of respect and acknowledgement. Villagers smiled, nodded, and welcomed him into their daily lives. Even the young boy he had guided came forward, offering a shy but genuine smile, a small symbol of trust and connection. Aeon stayed near him, her expression softening slightly. "You have proven yourself," she said. "But remember, true understanding is ongoing. You have earned the right to remain, but each day will bring new challenges. You must continue to act with patience, respect, and courage. The law is a living guide, and your journey is only beginning." Ethan felt a deep gratitude toward Aeon and the elders. He realized that he had entered this village as a desperate stranger, injured and alone, and now he was part of a community guided by wisdom and law. The weight of his actions, the trials he had endured, and the lessons he had learned had transformed him. He understood that survival was not merely about escaping danger, but about living with integrity, respect, and responsibility. The day continued with tasks that further reinforced these lessons. Ethan helped distribute food, guided animals, and assisted in repairing shelters. Every action, no matter how small, carried significance. He moved with care, conscious of the laws, the traditions, and the delicate balance that governed the village. Each act was a reflection of his commitment to honor both the law and the people who had trusted him. As evening approached, Aeon led him to the edge of the village where the sun dipped behind the hills. The valley glowed with a golden light, and the air was filled with the soft sounds of nature. She looked at him with a mixture of pride and quiet caution. "You have passed the trials," she said. "But remember, life under the law is never without challenge. You must continue to act with care, respect, and courage. Your choices will shape not only your future, but the well-being of those around you. The sacred law is not a cage. It is a guide, a protector, and a test of character. Live it wisely." Ethan nodded, feeling a profound understanding settle over him. He realized that the law, once a distant and intimidating concept, had become a framework for life, a path that demanded honesty, compassion, and courage. He understood that being accepted into the village was not a reward, it was a responsibility, one that he would honor with every action he took. Night fell over the valley, the stars twinkling above like distant guides. Ethan lay beneath the open sky, reflecting on the journey he had undertaken. He had arrived as a stranger, fleeing danger, injured and desperate. He had faced trials of patience, skill, and morality. He had learned the sacred law, acted with care, and proven himself worthy of trust. Aeon sat nearby, watching the sky, her presence a quiet reassurance. She knew the path ahead would not always be easy, that challenges would arise, and that the law would demand constant vigilance. Yet she also knew that Ethan had shown the strength, wisdom, and humility needed to walk this path. She had made a choice to save him, to guide him under the law, and now she observed him becoming part of the delicate balance she had sworn to protect. Ethan finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "I understand now. The law is not just rules or punishment, it is life, balance, and respect. I will honor it every day in every action. I will do my best to be worthy of the trust you and the elders have shown me." Aeon nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "Then you are ready." "Not all are, even if they survive the trials. You have proven that courage, respect, and wisdom can coexist, even in the face of hardship. Remember this always." The night deepened, bringing with it quiet serenity. The valley lay still, the village at peace under the watchful eyes of its guardians. Ethan Harper, once a desperate stranger, now stood as someone who had been tested, guided, and transformed. He had been saved, not merely from danger, but from the uncertainty of a world he could not navigate alone. He had been offered a place under the sacred law, a chance to live with purpose, responsibility, and honor. And though the challenges ahead were many, he knew one unshakable truth. The choice to act with respect, courage, and integrity was the path that would guide him through every trial, every decision, and every moment of life under the watchful eyes of Aeon, the elders, and the sacred law that had become both his shield and his guide. The valley lay in silence, bathed in starlight. Ethan Harper's journey had reached a turning point, not the end, but a new beginning. A beginning under the sacred law, guided by Aeon and shaped by every choice he had made. He was no longer merely a survivor. He was part of a world where honor, respect, and compassion determined the course of life. And in that quiet understanding, he finally felt a sense of belonging, hope, and purpose.